Call the meeting to order. Mrs. Hubley, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mission statement. I wrote down where I left off last time. I think the last time was Kim. Mrs. Hubley, will you read the mission statement?
Through the combined efforts of students, staff, parents, and community members, our mission is to foster the confidence, knowledge, cognition, and character necessary to instill a strong work ethic, to create an environment of tolerance and respect, and to ignite an attitude of inquiry and enthusiasm for learning that will enable students to become productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Need a motion to accept the agenda? Motion Mrs. Albright, second Mrs. Jordan. All in favor? So moved. Tonight, we're privileged to have the Monadeo Group here to give us their audit report. Welcome tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone want a paper copy before we start? I know it went out in your board packet, but I do have extras in case you want something tangible to look at. Okay. Well, if that's the case, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Michelle Lesser. I'm the manager on this engagement. And tonight we're going to start with the financial statements. That's going to be the largest packet or the largest PDF that you have. From there, we'll start on page 1. And there you'll find the independent auditor's report. And really what this required report is just reminding everybody that the financial statements are management's responsibility, and then it's our responsibility to express an opinion on the financial statement based on the results of our audit. If you go to the second page at the top, you'll see opinions. Here basically all it's saying is that we're issuing you an unmodified opinion. That's the best opinion you have. Really what that means is the information that you're provided on a monthly basis is accurate and correct, and we did not find any issues with it during our audit. Then from there, we'll move on to the next section. You'll see on page 4 is the management discussion and analysis. Really, in the financial statement, this is the only place that you're going to find comparative information. You can read through that at your own leisure. Then from there, we'll go to page 12. This is the statement of net position, and really what this is this is full accrual. And what that means is what you'll find on this statement is everything that's long-term, whether it's debt, pension-related, compensated absences, and also your fixed assets. So I'll point out a couple of things that changed from the prior year to this year, but in all reality, there wasn't any huge swings other than a couple items that I'll talk about. The first thing that you'll see is under the non-current assets, the capital assets, those were the same year over year. There was no large projects or additions during the year. Then if you go down a little bit further, you'll see deferred outflows of resources. You'll see pension-related and also OPEB-related. And what OPEB-related is the retiree health insurance for active and inactive employees. This is something that's not funded. It's pay as you go. You cannot actually put money in a trust to fund that. From there, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Last year, the OPEB liability was $16.4 million. This year went up to 25.3. And really what drives that is an actuarial valuation, and those inputs and assumptions will change year over year. Most of our districts have seen a big swing from last year to this year, so that's not very surprising. Other than that, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the net position. You'll see a negative $17.2 million for unrestricted and a negative $7 for total net position. And really, these are only negative due to your OPEB, your pension, and your compensated absences. So again, because of the long-term debt, that's what's driving them to be negative. But really, we'll focus a little bit more on the general fund, which is your current fund balance, and that is positive. So then from there, we'll flip to page 14. And 14 is also in conjunction with 16. These are your fund financial statements. These are on a modified accrual, and what that means is that revenue is recognized when measurable and available, and when your expenditures are incurred. So these fund statements are on the same as your budget. So very, very comparable. Your budget to actual schedules will be comparable to this. What we'll point out on here is you'll see halfway down the page the deferred inflows of resources. This is something new this year. So what happened was in August, New York State withheld 20% of local aid payments to all New York State school districts. So at that point, the revenue was determined as not available, so it's now a deferred inflow. So once New York State issues further guidance on that, either it will be recognized as revenue at that point in time, or whatever their plans are for payment. Then moving down the page a little bit more, you'll see the fund balance. You'll see a total fund balance of $3.7 million. That's very comparable to last year of $3.73 million. Again, very, very strong fund balance. That's what we like to see. Does anyone have any questions on this page before we move on? So then, just going to page 15, you'll see a reconciliation. Really all that is a reconciliation between the fund level and your government-wide level. It shows your long-term changes from year over year. Then 16 is like your income statement. Really, I won't talk about this very much. I'll have us look at the budget to actual schedule a little bit further on. Then you'll get on to page 20 through 44. These are all your footnotes. So everything that you see on the face of the financial statement, there will be some sort of narrative involved in the notes. So if you need any sort of further information, you can find that right in the notes. So I'll have you flip to page 46, which is that budget to actual schedule. I'll point out a couple of key items there. So on 46, if you look at the column called final budget, that's your approved budget from last year for fiscal year ending 20, and then it also includes any transfers that you had approved during the school year. So if you look at the very bottom, you'll see that you had budgeted to use $1.6 million in fund balance. But then if you go over to the very, very far right column, you'll end up seeing that it ended up being 1.4 positive variance between your budget to what you actually spent. So in all reality, you actually added $36,000 to your fund balance during the year instead of using that $1.6 million. A couple reasons behind that, obviously, is the pandemic. The supplies were down, substitute teachers you weren't paying, benefits were down, things of that nature. Very in line with what's going on with the pandemic at this point. Is there any other questions on the budget to actual schedule? Okay. Then from there, we'll move on to page 54. On page 54, what you'll find is the 4% calculation. Obviously, New York State looks to see that fund balance is not over the 4%. New York Mills is not. It was going to be exactly at 4 until we had to make the adjustment for New York State and the aid payments that they withheld. Again, no concerns here. You're right where you should be. Then from there, we'll go to page 57. This is one of the last reports that we're required to issue. This one speaks to the internal controls over financial reporting. Again, this report says we did not find any issues. Internal controls are strong. There's nothing to be concerned about there. Is there any questions on the financial statement before we move on to the next report? Okay. The next one that we'll move on to is addressed to the Board of Education and Superintendent. It says significant audit findings right in the middle, just to kind of give you a little bit point of reference. So really what this is saying is, again, there was no findings. There was also no new accounting pronouncements this year. Looking forward to the next audit, there will be one new upcoming pronouncement for GAP 84. Really what this means is it will affect the presentation of the ECA funds in the financial statement. It won't change our audit, it won't change the procedures, it won't change the accounting. It's really just how it's presented in the financial statement. Then from there, if you look at the bottom, there's a little imprinted or indented portion. This talks about the sensitive estimates that are disclosed in your financial statements. These are the same year over year. There's no new items. They're more about your depreciation expense, compensated absences, your pension, and your OPEB. They're all very sensitive areas, and again, they're all by the actuary, so therefore we have to disclose that they are an estimate. From there, if you move on down, we did not have any difficulties in performing the audit. We thank you, Lisa and your team, very much for helping us get through a remote audit. We know it's not easy for you guys, it's a lot of extra work, but we did it and we greatly appreciate it, so thank you. Then down to the next paragraph, you're going to see corrected and uncorrected misstatements. Again, we did not propose any material adjustments as a result of our procedures, so everything that you are receiving on a monthly basis is accurate. Is there any questions on this report before we move on to the ECA? So the next one we'll do, it has the cover page on it. It says extra classroom activity funds. In here you'll also find another independent auditor's report. The difference between this one and the first one we discussed is that the ECA funds are on a cash basis versus an accrual basis. Again, we provided an unmodified opinion, the best opinion that you can receive on these. If you flip to page 4, what you'll find is the full class activities for the year from last year, the receipts disbursements to this year. And then the other report kind of goes in conjunction with this. It was our management letter, which are our observations and recommendations. Really with ECA, because students are involved in learning fiscal responsibility, we expect to find errors. Very common amongst all districts. We don't usually not issue a management letter for districts with their ECA funds. So if you flip that open, I'll just point out 2 new items. It's item number 3 and item number 4. Both of those are new this year. Number 3 just states that we recommend that cash is deposited as soon as possible. Really, with New York State guidance, they would like to see the cash deposited within 72 hours of the activity. There was some instances where, it was a couple days after that, not a huge deal, but we just like to point that out. And also the last one is that we noted that there was a couple instances where the disbursing order was not signed by the student activity treasurer, and it was because school was closed during COVID. So really what we want to point out here is that if school does shut down again, to make sure that there's some sort of plan or procedures in place to still get that student's signature going forward, even if they are remote, whether it's through email or something of that nature. Again, nothing to be concerned about, just recommendations to strengthen internal controls. And that is all I have for you. Is there any questions or concerns?
Anybody on the board have a question? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we're in good, basically we're in good shape.
You're in great shape.
Then. That's all we want to know.
I said at the beginning we could do this or this.
Yeah, I mean, I will give you 2 of these, not even just one. I will give you 2 thumbs up. You guys are in great shape. You're in great hands. It's always nice coming to a district where you don't have to report findings.
I just have a question,
Sure.
and I didn't realize it till, but
Yeah.
going back to the last letter that we looked at,
Yep.
observations,
Yes.
and maybe I'm not reading enough into it, what is the difference between observation 2 and observation 4? Both talking about the student activity treasurer.
So the first 2, number 2 was actually during the school year prior to it
Prior to
closing,
COVID.
and 4 was during COVID. So we just wanted to differentiate just to show that there was a slight difference. We don't want to ding you because COVID was going on and obviously it was new to everyone and procedures hadn't necessarily been thought of because school was closed.
Okay.
So that's why we just separated them out a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
No, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I
Thank you.
really appreciate the time.
Well, we appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
So moving on, 2.2 residents' messages. Basically, I wanted to make sure, just in case I didn't before, on behalf of Chris and I, we appreciate everybody coming to do the work session. Felt that it was productive, it was positive. If it's the board's pleasure, I think we should probably revisit it again in a couple of months and do another work session. To see how that falls out, and see where we are, and if anything that we've done and worked on has made a positive difference. Also, the superintendent will be speaking to us before. Your vice president and I have discussed our board governance document that we all worked very hard on. Unfortunately, still says draft, so we're gonna have to get that in place, because a lot of time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears were put into making it the document what it was, for it just to be sitting there and lying idle. So the superintendent will talk again, but I felt it was important enough to mention again because, Kristen and I had some conversations about, we do this great work as a group. We should be able to have that someplace where anybody can access it, take a look at it. Also, during visitors' comments tonight, Stephanie will be reading another letter that we got from the teachers union, and basically you'll hear more when she reads the context. But I want to reiterate, and maybe the board has some suggestions, that we're not doing a good enough job letting them know where our lanes are, because if they still feel compelled to write the letters to us, they're not understanding that we as a board get direction and recommendations from our superintendent and our administrators. So we've got to do a better job, because we're all learning to stay in our lane, to help them and navigate them back to the people they should be having the discussions with are their principals and their superintendent. We cannot act on anything that's not put before us. So I think that we're surely sympathetic to what they're going through. But again, if they're looking for us to provide a resolution to their situation, we can't do that. So what ends up happening is there ends up being hard feelings, like the board won't listen, the board won't do this, when in reality, the board can't do what they're asking. So helping to educate them a little bit more, in a tactful way. So as to not say that we're not responsive, just that writing the letters to us, is not gonna help their cause any. We appreciate it, we understand their feelings, but we're not the ones who fix it. So I'm just gonna leave that right there, and if people come up with something, Kristen and I are anxious to hear. I did not get a BOCES representative report from Dr. Purcelli. Committee reports. Mrs. Albright, do you have anything for policy? I've noticed there were quite a few first reads.
Yep, we met on September 8th. We reviewed, I believe we reviewed about 8 of them. Some of them were regulations and they weren't any changes, so they're not going to be presented. But yeah, you'll see the ones that are in here. And then our next meeting, I believe, is next week.
Okay. And the suggestions or changes or modifications can go to any of your committee members, or do you want them coming to you?
They can come to me. They just email me. And if anybody wants the meeting minutes too, I can send them.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Communications Survey Committee, that's Mrs. Holman.
Yeah, we met just prior to this meeting, and I'm gonna let Dr. Shelmadine, that she has discussions about, she's gonna discuss that in her superintendent's update, so I'll just let her.
Okay. Mr. Carmen, how about transportation?
Oh, yes, well, we met on September 22nd, Dr. Shelmadine, myself, Ken Jerry, Patty Ward. Just a few things we discussed. There's 2 new vehicles in our fleet. At this time, we're not, we broke away from the leasing part of the vehicles. We're still in discussion, or they are, regarding purchasing a new type of van for smaller, students. And lots of good feedback for the bus drivers, and I guess everything's been pretty smooth for the most part, which is what we want to hear with everything else going on. And one more thing I want to add is just let the public know, kudos to our bus drivers. After every run, they come back and there's specified disinfectants in down the buses. So just let everybody know. kids are in good hands.
We'll make sure that's in the record there, Stephanie.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. King, health and safety.
You did not meet last month.
Okay. When all this is over and done with, is there any idea like for another tentative health fair or something? That really went well before.
I'm interested in making that happen again, and I like the idea that we did synergy with the turkey trot last year. So I'm looking for hopefully an event in the spring that we can do the synergy again and have a dual event where it works for both parties. But right now, until
Yeah.
we get the blessing to do those kinds of things, we have to wait. I'm 100% in favor of doing it. I'd like to see that.
Thank you. And Mrs. Jordan.
We met earlier in September. We had the pleasure of the architects to join us, and as well as Neil to join us and kind of go over all of the many projects. And you don't realize until you start going through all of the great things that we're doing. But the capital outlay, the blue light system, and our lovely giving the ID and getting our badges and stuff is all set, and I believe that's in the final piece of it, which I think Dr. Schoenheim is going to review. The capital project was broken out into two phases, one being the most important pieces that are safety concerns, the curb, the wall in the auditorium, and the touchless faucets, so that for safety reasons, that's gone to SED. Phase 2 is the main building, the press box, the other stuff, and that's our excitement, hopefully in summer of 2021. Again, that's going to be submitted this month to SED. So there's lots of phases of this process. The capital outlay for the 2021 Home and Careers Room is submitted and is anticipated back in hopefully in the next month or so. And then we are also in the middle of the energy performance contract, which is currently in review. So, not bored. Lots going on, but it's really good forward progress. Neil is right on and just kind of took over and really is involved in all of it. And Brian and Dan are just continue to be fun and on their game. So we meet again at the end of this month.
Thank you, and I'm glad you mentioned Neil because he really brought a lot to the table with that committee, and it was nice to have him there.
Yes, and hopefully we'll be able to invite him to come to one of these when we, maybe when things are starting to move forward when we're in the midst of, I think, a lot going on, and he can kind of probably give a more on the land response than I can, but I'm really excited he's part of our team.
Thank you. And Mrs. Jerry is not here, but SBI has been busy with their Meet the Candidates. I know a few of you have attended those. Worth it or not?
I've been able to go on to one, but it was nice to kind of get that two people's perspective instead of everybody's, and everybody's starting to mesh. So I thought it was really good. I learned a lot.
So good format.
It was. I mean, it's never as great than it is in person, but I think it was really good to kind of get only two people's perspective at a time versus everybody on the panel.
Mrs. Sullivan, how do you feel about
No, I
that?
agree with that. I like this format. Again, it's better in person, but I like the format exactly how Michelle said. You're hearing just from two people, and you're hearing the two different candidates' perspectives. They're asking the same questions in all of the FBI meetings, so we know the questions ahead of time. And I've been on two, and I've just been impressed with how they've done it. So.
Mr. King, did you attend those? You generally do.
I did not this time.
Probably for the same reasons I didn't.
Yeah. It would be like 9 o'clock and I'd go with the oh darn, except I use the word darn.
Well, yeah. 3.1, moving on, consent agenda, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, can I get a motion? Motion, Mr. King, second, Mrs. Jordan. All in favor? So moved. Through 3.4, approval of the meeting minutes dated September 1st, 2020. Motion, Mr. King, second, Mr. Carmen, all in favor? So moved. 3.5, approval of meeting minutes dated September 9th, 2020. Motion, Mrs. Jordan, second, Mrs. Albright, all in favor? So moved. 4.1, capital updates. Old business. You're on.
I'm on. So as Mrs. Jordan suggested, stated, the energy performance contract, that audit is going on now. We should hopefully have that wrapped up in time for you to have a report prior to your board packet for November. And the presentation also at the November board meeting. So if not, it'll be December, but they're wrapping it up now, doing a great job getting in and trying to see the efficiencies that we could take advantage of. The old capital outlay taken care of. The Raptor system's working well, the blue light system's working well. We haven't had a lockdown drill yet, we'll be having one probably soon. We have had evacuation drills, those have gone really well. The current capital outlay, so for this school year, been submitted to state ed. It is the home and careers room. It's primarily more cosmetic for most of it, and then to put in a handicap accessible cooking station. And it will be the bulk of that project. And then, as Mrs. Jordan said, the capital project is in 2 phases. We're hoping to hear soon about phase 1, which is the curb cut, touchless faucets, and the auditorium. And then phase 2, the students are already very excited. They've already asked me if we took their suggestions into consideration. So they are very excited about next summer's project.
Wonderful. Moving on, 5.1, if you noticed, Stephanie included an updated personnel report in there with an addition of a coach on there. Thank you, Mrs. Jordan, for catching that. So you can get rid of your old one. So I need a motion on that. Motion, Mrs. Jordan, second, Mr. Carmen. Any discussion? All in favor? So moved. 5.2, I know you guys are going to have to think hard on this one. The resolution to approve and authorize amendment to the employment agreement for the superintendent of schools.
Called question.
Motion, Mr. King. Second, Mrs. Hubley. Any discussion? I'm not saying a word. All in favor? So moved.
Thank you, everybody.
Did you catch that? Because on your piece of paper, Mrs. Sharp, you're going to have to write King and Hubley. Okay, now we're going to go on to the first reads. So we don't have to do anything with them. We don't need any movement on them, but I'm just going to read off what they are. If you have any concerns or questions prior to me reading it, I'm going to say that a couple of places that when I looked on it where it said superintendent or designee, I wasn't quite sure why it just didn't say superintendent or administrative staff or superintendent or principals, because generally that's how it follows, but unless there's something by law that prohibits that.
I think we've always had the superintendent or designee, because then she can designate whoever she wants, whoever she's feeling that day.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, if we're trying to get people in the mindset of utilizing the principles behind her, I always think it's nice to see it spelled out that, you know, if you can't go to her, you can go to Mrs. Facci or Mr. Dodge, or, you know, I guess in particular when some of the policies would deal with transportation or with maintenance, you would go to the superintendent or Mrs. Stamboli, you know, what you call her by title. I don't know, it's just me. If you guys don't agree, that's okay too. I'm all right, whatever way you put it.
Yeah, we can go over it at the meeting next week.
And that was just like, it was kind of generic throughout when I kept looking at it. 5.3 is the community use of school facilities. 5.4, school use release from liability form. 5.5, visitors to the school. 5.6, records management. 5.7 regulation. 1100.1, public access to records. 5.8, audit resolution.
Nope, that's it.
Oh yeah, I'm going down the list, just going down, okay?
Anxious to finish?
And that's it, yep. Now we have to go on, now we need a motion on this. The audit resolution based upon what we heard. Motion, can I get a motion? Motion, Mr. King, second, Mrs. Albright. Any discussion? All in, Mr. King?
Actually, I'd just like to make a comment that I am very happy whenever I see this report and another work that Lisa and the rest of the staff, including Dr. Shulman, and I put into this, and it's great to get a report like this that says we're golden. So, just want to put that on the record.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you did. I think sometimes we're quick to criticize, but not, we don't do it enough to say the positive things. And thank you, Lisa. You are appreciated by all of us. All in favor? So moved. 5.9, resolution to adopt the new records retention schedule, LGS 01.
I'll make the motion for purposes of discussion. I'd like
Okay.
to ask Dr. Shulman and I to talk to this.
Yeah.
I was hoping somebody would, because I thought she should speak to it for the record. Motion, Mr. King, second, Mrs. Jordan. Discussion, Doctor?
Actually, I'm going to probably turn it over to our board clerk. It's more about record keeping, and so it's more procedural.
Okay. We always used ED1 previously, and what they found is that they're moving to they're utilizing basically the same format as ED1 with very, very subtle changes, at least in our case, but moving towards a broader government, which is what this is. The government is taking over ED1, and we are becoming a larger part, or a small part in a larger scope. So essentially not as a lot is going to change for us. It's just how they number things slightly. Every single school board has to vote on this. Basically, it's we're going to do it. is how the government has said it. But not much is going to change.
Our time frame for our whichever records, how long we have to keep them, that has not changed.
No.
So it's more procedural, and it's more which agency is governing it.
And who has access to these records?
The same individuals that had it before.
Just here, or is it?
It's just here. It's just here.
No, just
Okay, thank you.
Call the question?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, moving on. 5.10, excess list for bid sale disposal. Motion, Mrs. Hubley, second, Mrs. Jordan. Any discussion? Mr. King?
Are we still trying to sell some of this stuff through the Oneida County Consortium, or are we doing it on our own, or?
no. So
I saw the second one is.
yeah, we had a book buyer
Maybe
who
$1.99 or whatever, but.
Yeah, we had a book buyer who came in and looked over all of our books that we could access, and they are taking $18.45 worth of them.
Yes, what about the other pile though, is there anything,
We'll
I
put,
have it it tears my heart up to throw books in the trash.
typically what we do is we throw them out, we ask any students if they would like them. Some of them are in rough shape and they're not really usable for anybody. Those, that's a quick decision. Typically nobody wants those.
Thank you.
Call the question? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. 6.1, principals report.
So the hybrid schedule is going well. Teachers and kids are doing a great job. Last night we had the virtual open house. We had about 150 views the last time I checked. Progress reports for the 5-week reports will be mailed by the end of next week. Student Council is having a pumpkin carving contest for the month of October. They're also doing spirit days. They're doing 4 spirit days with themes every day, and they're going to take 2 weeks to do it so that all the students in person get to experience all 4 days. And we've actually had quite a bit of student council involvement virtually, which is great to see. Next, I'm working on a plan for strategically assigning lockers with the cold weather coming so that students can still be spaced appropriately, store their coats. We would still limit the number of times they should be going to the locker a day because we're not going to be able to guarantee them, being that far apart if we're letting them all out whenever they change classes. So I'm thinking in the morning, when I do announcements, we'll have groups go out, put their coats away, and then the same thing at the end of the day announcements. That's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Dodge?
So we just finished our last round of open house this evening. So what we did is we had basically no more than 2 grade levels at a time, and an in-person open house, which went really well. Parents, and we asked that just one parent of the family come in so that we could try to resemble that of what a regular day would be. So that's gone really well. So it's good to see a lot of parents. The parent-teacher conference schedule is going to be released in the coming days. With half days in November, those will be conducted virtually. Just a little anxiety about bringing so many people in and so all at one time. So it's just a lot of traffic in and out. So we're concerned about that. We just want to reduce that and go virtual with that. Some other things that we got working is we're doing something similar to Spirit Week. PTSO will usually comes up with themes for the day. We will do a 5-day one ending on Friday with our Halloween parade. We're still working on what that's going to look like. It might be a live, Facebook broadcast, I think is probably the safest way to go with that. So I think that's the way we're leaning right now. So we'll finalize that in the coming days. We're still working on that. I have a meeting with the teachers tomorrow, so we'll talk a little bit more about it. Transitions from, so again, obviously a lot going on the elementary side with all the students in COVID. And it's not without its bumps in the road, for sure. But we address them as they arise, and we smooth them out and try to do the best we can. So I think everything that we have in front of us has been great, given the circumstances. Everybody's adapting, especially the kids. I think the kids have done nothing but prove how resilient they really are. So it's been, again, it's a whole new place, and it's great to see their faces around here. It's been an awesome open, even with all the stuff in our way.
I noticed an uptick in the enrollment on the elementary side. Are these kids coming in virtual, or are they?
We have decided that the new students, so as not to disrupt the current program that we have in place for our current students, that it's best that they begin life in the virtual world or in the remote world. So it's just, again, too many, I think kids coming into a particular grade level could really cause some angst there in terms of the size of the classrooms. So we're trying to avoid disrupting what we have going and do our best. And if space becomes available, we'll maybe take a different route. But I think right now we're in a good spot. Not too many out of them.
Nice.
I think that's. And lastly, Friday the Reading League is coming in. The Reading League is a program out of Syracuse. Their task is to kind of deliver the science of reading information, and they help in terms of aligning it with your current reading series and curriculum. So they're coming in to give our entire elementary staff an orientation to what science of reading is. From that point, we'll start to develop some ideas and some pathways for where we're headed in the future in regard to future training. So I would just like to thank Mary and Joanne for their support in pursuing them and allowing them to come in and really help our teachers and support what we're doing on the elementary side.
Thank you. You again.
All right, so kind of all of the three items that are under my update are kind of all in one report. So the enrollment numbers have been provided, as you noticed, we do have some new students, which has been great to see. And again, as Mr. Dodge said, we're starting them remotely. I think one of the things that I'm very proud of is the fact that with our staff, our students, our families, we're a month into reopening and things have been really remarkably smooth, especially when I think about some of the issues that our neighbors are having. And so I think we've got a model right now that's working, and I don't think any of us really want to upset that at all, so that we can stay open as long as possible. If there's been a struggle, it's mostly been the lack of communication between the State Department of Health and the various counties. It does not appear that there's a consistent approach or recommendation. Herkimer County recommends something different than Onondaga, than Oneida, and that's been much more problematic. If you combine this with the state government and all of its executive orders and mandates, it does start to feel like the real goal is for us to close. So I'm very proud of the fact that we are open and that we are continuing to do the best we can for our students, our families, and for the economy. We're hearing that the state is projecting a 15% decrease in revenue. As the governor makes cuts or reduces our aids, there's no guarantee that we will see those funds returned. This situation is very similar to the gap elimination adjustment that many of us remember from a few years ago. And as we know, although monies were eventually returned across the span of several years, some of our programs and services were lost. And I'm disappointed to see this happen, and I think it's going to happen again.
Well, even with the gap elimination, we never came back fully.
Right.
Not what we should have.
Exactly. I know an outstanding item was the site supervisor. Mr. Dodge was able to get a job description from another district. We're still drafting out what that will look like for Mills. This position really will be kind of part host, hostess, part chaperone, part liaison. And so there are questions that we're still working out. Is it posted per game, per sport, per season? You know, how do we make sure that we've got the right people who are in those roles, who feel like they have the responsibility and can really hold the line on what the expectations are. So it's certainly going to be a commitment for whoever signs on. I also want to thank the board for their work during the work session. The three main areas that rose to the top were technology, preparing our students for college and or the workforce, or as some of you like to say, adulting, and sustainability. So the technology, we're looking at concrete issues, getting enough Chromebooks and devices to put a device in each student's hands, or a one-to-one initiative. We're looking at the platforms that facilitate instruction and learning, such as Google Classroom, different apps, etc. We are trying to keep a focus on student privacy protections, however. We're also focused on more abstract topics, such as acceptable use, social media, and even how to balance on-screen and off-screen time, especially given this virtual world we're embracing. When we consider the issues of preparing our students for the world beyond our walls, the focus is on school-to-work opportunities. How do we get students out into our community to shadow different career paths? This area must also include goal setting for students, not only setting goals, but outlining the steps or actions needed to meet their goals. And also, how do we ready our students to be independent, work within a budget, address finances, solve problems, be self-starters, all of those things that we know leads to the success of our young people. The last area that we highlighted for our work this year is sustainability. So if we look at sustainability, we need to review our mission and our vision statements. How are we marketing ourselves? Can everyone, students, families, and staff, tell what we stand for and who we are? Are we student-focused? Are our electives and extracurriculars based on what students are interested in taking? It's also been about 5 years since we worked on our mission and vision statements, and that's work that should be ongoing and revisited to make sure that we're all moving forward. I think ideally to have community members, students, staff, all on one committee, marketing who we are with a tagline or a mission that everybody can recall very quickly. If you're asked, what does New York Mills stand for, you will be able to say in 3 or 4 words. In addition, I'll put out the ground rules document in your update this Friday for another review. I'll have that document on the October 13th agenda prior to the executive session that we're going to have to discuss negotiations of a particular bargaining unit. That's my report.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Stephanie?
8.1 from the floor. Good evening to the school board. I wanted to take this opportunity to reach out to you all as we have reached our 5-week mark of the 2020 school year. The efforts of the faculty and staff are evident in the success of our district amidst this global pandemic. I am more proud than ever to work in a district where we all work together to meet the needs of the students in our community. This school year continues to bring us many challenges. As educators, we have become accustomed to adjusting our approach as needs arise. The obstacles to success that educators face this year are like none other. Regardless of the educational model being employed, the academic hill to climb this year is steep. For our youngest learners, our teachers are faced with students who have had no in-person instruction for 3 months before they headed into summer vacation. The result is the regression of skills that we are accustomed to seeing in students from an average summer, compounded by the academic loss due to school closing in March. As a result, we have students that have lost significant amounts of instructional time. The simple fact is that our students exhibit greater gaps in learning than we have experienced in years past. Our teacher assistants fulfill many roles. They are available to assist our students in a variety of ways. They are able to help our students stay on task and focus during instruction. Our assistants are able to provide small group instruction that supplement what our teachers are able to provide within our classrooms. They assist in collecting data that helps guide our instruction. In a year when our students have missed so much time in their classrooms, not having this support leaves the students without the individualized support that they need now more than ever. This school year presents a golden opportunity to make up lost ground. Although we have created classes with smaller groups of students, the range of needs within these groups are still as diverse as ever. With the invaluable support offered from teacher assistants, our students would have the chance to make significant gains to close these gaps. With supplemental support, students will be provided with the individualized attention that they deserve. With more support for our students in the extremes, both of those above grade level and those below, our students would realize greater successes in building those foundational skills upon which all of our learning develops. On behalf of the New York Mills Teachers Association, I would like to advocate for the return of these valuable professionals to our staff here at New York Mills, where they will be able to continue to work with the students of this district.
Thank you. Did you receive any other correspondence?
No, that was the
or
only
questions?
correspondence.
Just for the record, who was the signer of that one?
That was Mrs. Marley.
Thank you.
That's from the floor. Now we go into board discussions. So again, I want to reiterate, as you saw right there, there was a statement that was made that they were advocating to us. Again, we don't do that. She advocates, or her principals advocate when it comes to us. We are receptive, we understand there are neighboring districts that are experiencing the same thing. Mr. Dodge, what is the average class size at this point in time?
Probably 13, 14.
Okay. And majority of them are running 13 or 14.
Yeah, it depends on the grade level. Some grade, like, for example, third grade has 4 sections, so they're a little bit lower than some of the other ones. But you have some, like 5th grade, that are at 15 and 14, and 6th grade's at 15.
It looks like kindergarten's running at 10.
Kindergartens are packed to the gills right now.
You're only running 2 sections? But we do have monitors for those classes, true?
They are currently basically stretched out doing other things around the building. So they're assisting in other areas along with.
Okay, we're just trying to get a feel for the numbers for the rest of the board too. I mean, we have them in front of us, but the sections, so kindergarten, we have 2 sections. First grade we have 3 sections. Second grade, we have 3 sections. Third grade, we have 4 sections. Fourth grade, we have 5th grade
2.
and 6th grade. Okay. Thank you. Does it help the rest of the board to visualize class sizes? Anything else from the board? Anything, anybody want?
No, I just want to clarify with the, excuse me, with the policies and stuff, we combined 100.3 with the 100.2. So the .3 was eliminated. I don't think that was part of that, but I just wanted to add that in.
Thank you. Ms. Stark, anything?
I just wanted to, kudos all the staff here that, in speaking with and seeing it myself and speaking with and seeing it on, responses. I think that the understanding from the public is that New York Mills has really stepped up and has been doing what they've done, communicating, and I think the kids have just rallied and shocked most people and probably their own parents. I know my child shocked me, so I think it has proven the resilience of our inside this building and the desire for these kids to learn and the teachers to do what they need to do, and I'm really proud of the school.
Board discussion, right? Yeah.
No, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Michelle said. I just think, we're setting an example of how things could work correctly, and I think if we just keep moving forward, we're just going to remain successful in our model, and we have to have faith in our model. It's working. So, kudos to the staff and the administration for everything they've done, and our parents, again, to being resilient and wanting to be in the building and that school and teachers, proud of the teachers there. We want, the teachers want kids in our classroom. And I think we are doing the best we can to make that happen and we're being successful at it.
And I'm gonna say, I am glad that we are in school and our children are here, because one of the questions I've always had with Dr. Shellman and I is, when you're doing this remote learning, especially with little ones, how do you know there's not some FERPA violations going on? And that's always troubled me. I have a friend that teaches in Utica, and some of the background and some of the things that other little ears are hearing on there shouldn't be heard, nor should people have access. So that always bothered me about the remote learning, and I think we do it right here at New York Mills, having children return back.
Again, I'd like to say thank you to all the staff, all of the students. People do good work. Thank you.
I do have one more. I totally forgot. And sports-wise, I am impressed with what we've been able to move forward with, the professionalism and the ability to move in a very, very, very safe way. We went to a cross-country meet. I happen to know someone on the other team who came up to me outside of and said, I can't begin to thank you. The professionalism and with the masks on and the kids recognizing what they needed to do, the coaches having distance, they were very impressed with our kids. And so that right there, I think when our kids go out to another school and show them that they understand what needs to happen and shows that respect to another school is huge. So I think that I'm again very impressed, because it could have gone another direction and it could spiral. So kudos to the sports that we can have.
Anything else? Doctor, do you need us to go into executive session, or does that wait till next week? Okay, need a motion to adjourn? Motion, Mr. King, second, Mrs. Jordan, all in favor? Come on, Kristen, put your hand up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.